9 days after Haiti's catastrophic earthquake, getting food, water, and medicine where it is desperately needed is still a big problem. Here's what we know. U.S. officials say the military will station aid officials in the airport control tower in Port-au-Prince. That's aimed at improving the flow of aid, plus Canadian troops plan to open another airfield south of the capital. The never-ending process of disposing of bodies goes on. According to the European Commission, Haitian authorities say 80,000 people have been buried in mass graves. An estimated 200,000 are dead. Incredibly, rescues are still taking place. U.S. teams rescued a 5-year-old boy from the rubble of his collapsed home yesterday, and neighbors dug out an 11-year-old girl in another part of the city. Man, let's get you now to the efforts to speed up deliveries. There he is. I'm not sure he can hear us, though. CNN's Brian Todd is joining me live from Port-au-Prince. And Brian, I believe there's a bit of a delay. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Tony, officials here at the airport in Port-au-Prince are very aware of the complaints from aid agencies and others that not enough aid flights have been able to land on this airport and not enough aid has been able to get off the tarmac quickly enough out into the community. They are working to correct both the problem and the perception of that. And they tell us today that the flow of aid coming through here is much, much better. They tell us now that more than 100 flights are coming through here now, as opposed to about 25 flights a day when this operation started. As a matter of fact, a military official just told me they're up to about 160 flights a day coming through here. As you can see behind me, there is a swarm of activity. It's not just military flights coming in. You've got people trying to get out of Haiti. You've got people getting aid. You've got people getting hospital help on the tarmac here. This is acting as a hospital, a logistics hub, as well as an airport. So this is not easy to coordinate all of this. One of the ways that they're trying to remedy one particular problem, which was that when a given plane would land, they would not know exactly what kind of aid was in it. They had trouble identifying some of the aid. Now they've got aid workers up in the control tower that are able to communicate directly with the pilots to talk about what aid they have and where it should go. They funnel it through the USAID, then to the UN's World Food Program and other agencies to get it off the tarmac. But U.S. officials do acknowledge it's still not moving fast enough. They are working to try to correct the problem. A couple of things are affecting it. Clearly, this is still the #1 logistics hub here when you're moving aid through. The actual seaport is still not open. When that opens, that will ease some of the congestion here, but the aftershock yesterday really set that back quite a bit. We're also told that Canadian officials are opening up a second airstrip. All of that is going to help. Tony, still, this is the main logistics hub. It is a real challenge to get all the flights in and out. I mean, you can see behind me, you've got a caravan of vehicles here. These are officials just trying to get their goods or their personnel off the tarmac. And, you've got flights behind them waiting to load up and unload. So it is a real challenge here. It is in constant motion, Tony.
Yeah. We can see, Brian, at the Port-au-Prince airport, still plenty of bottlenecks out there, but it's good to see more of these planes getting on the ground and that caravan behind you moving out. All right, Brian, appreciate it. Thank you.
9 days after the earthquake in Haiti, millions of people are still desperate for basic needs like food and water. U.S. Marines and other international troops are making small progress in handing out supplies. Blocked roads and lack of a warehouse space continues to slow down the distribution of aid. The difficult task of burying the dead is happening north of Haiti's capital. Workers are carving out mass graves, as you can see, to bury 10,000 victims in a single day. And Chelsea Clinton, who recently visited Haiti with her father, President Bill Clinton, is planning on doing her part to raise relief money. Today, Chelsea will host a special spin class in New York City. Riders will donate up to $1,000 for the ride. Chelsea's mother, Hillary Clinton, just announced that the Haiti Text Message Campaign has now raised $25 million for relief efforts in Haiti. Clinton was speaking about internet freedom at the museum just a short time ago, as you can see in that video. And a final apology for...
Here are the latest headlines out of Haiti this hour. The Haitian government now estimates that somewhere between 1.5 million and 2 million people are homeless after last week's earthquake. And the death toll remains at a staggering number, some estimates of 200,000 people. To date, some 80,000 people have been buried in mass graves. And it still remains a desperate search for the living. Experts now say that the injured may have to wait up to 12 days for medical treatment. That raises the concern that infections and disease will spread in those makeshift camps we're seeing. And NBC Chief Science and Health Correspondent Bob Bazell is on the ground in Port-au-Prince with the latest on getting the care to those in need. And Bob, what is the latest that you're seeing?
Well, good morning, Tamara. The latest is that things are getting better slowly, not as nearly as quickly as everybody would like, but everything is, of course, grim here. There are several hospitals now up and running in Port-au-Prince. Many of them are doing heroic operations to amputate limbs and give other treatments that are needed to stop infections that shouldn't have set in the first place. If people had gotten care at a standard American emergency room right after the earthquake with these injuries, they would have had no problem at all. But of course, it's been all this time, so infections do set in. Sometimes amputations, sadly, are necessary, and sometimes people don't even get to care. And a lot of it depends on knowing which hospitals are available and up and running, and a lot of people don't have that information. Even doctors at one hospital don't know what the capabilities are at another hospital because there's not a lot of communication. So those kind of logistics are very difficult to work out. They haven't been done very well yet, and that's one of the things that's causing all those unnecessary deaths. Tamara?
And Bob, you talk about infection, but I want to talk about disease. With this number of 2 million people possibly homeless, you have people living in close quarters. The drinking water, the quality, obviously not acceptable by our standards. How are they preventing, or how at this point can you prevent disease from spreading from person to person?
Well, it's a huge problem, and the biggest immediate concern, and if we're going to see an outbreak in the camps, the first one would be typhoid. There was a lot of typhoid in Haiti to start with, and then that is going to come next. So in most of these camps that we see, and they're all over the city, in the big public parks, in the stadiums, in any kind of makeshift open facility, sometimes even on the streets at night, people are living together in very close quarters, and they don't have any facilities whatsoever to go to the bathroom, as we would say, and so it's all over the place, and of course that could spread disease very easily. Tamara.
All right, NBC's Bob Bazell still on the ground in Port-au-Prince following this story for us.